I sat on the edge of our bed, gripping one of Melissa's favorite high heels. It was the same pair she'd worn for all the milestones that mattered to us. Our wedding, our first anniversary, even the dinner celebrating my promotion when she told me how proud she was. Back then, I believed every word. Everything changed a few days ago when I stumbled across a message on her phone. It was short, yet devastating. Can't wait to see you tonight. Were those red heels? I love how sexy they make you look. It felt like someone had punched me in the chest. I couldn't bring myself to look at the sender's name at first, but when I did, the blood in my veins froze. It was Oliver, a longtime acquaintance, and, once upon a time, my closest friend. Now, as I held that heel in my trembling hands, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just an accessory. It was a symbol of all the lies she had hidden behind her charming smile and perfect exterior. I should have known something was off. The late nights with her friends, the sudden obsession with her appearance, the way she always seemed to glow when she came home from yoga. And yet, like a fool, I ignored the signs. But that message, it was a slap in the face I couldn't ignore. It confirmed everything I had been too scared to admit to myself. Melissa wasn't just distant. She was cheating on me, and with Oliver, of all people. I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to, God knows I wanted to, but something inside me told me to wait, to plan, to figure out exactly how far this had gone. So I did what I'd never imagined I'd have to do. I started investigating my own wife. First, I checked her phone while she slept. There were no more messages, which meant she'd either deleted them or was using another app to communicate. Next, I followed her one evening when she said she was going to a work dinner. I stayed far enough behind that she wouldn't notice me, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might give me away. She didn't go to a restaurant. Instead, she drove to a small boutique hotel on the other side of town. I watched as she parked her car, adjusted her lipstick in the mirror, and stepped out. And there he was, Oliver, standing by the entrance, looking smug as hell. He greeted her with a kiss that was anything but platonic. My stomach churned, and my hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I sat there, frozen, as they disappeared inside. I could have stormed in right then and there, but something held me back. Rage, humiliation, and heartbreak swirled inside me. But another thought began to creep in, a darker one. If they thought they could humiliate me like this, they were dead wrong. This wasn't going to end the way they expected. When Melissa came home that night, I played dumb. She kissed me on the cheek, smelling of perfume and lies, and went straight to the shower. That's when I knew this wasn't just a mistake. This was who she had become, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I don't know how this will end, but one thing's for sure. I'm done playing the fool. And the heel in my hand, it's going to play a much bigger role in what comes next than she could ever imagine. Melissa was always good at pretending. That night, as she kissed me goodnight and slid into bed, I watched her closely. She didn't show an ounce of guilt, no hesitation in her actions, no crack in her mask. If I hadn't seen her with Oliver, I might have believed she had spent the evening at some boring work dinner. But now, I couldn't even look at her without feeling sick. The next day, while she went about her routine, I started laying the groundwork for what was coming. I didn't want a messy confrontation where she'd lie her way out or turn the blame on me. No, I wanted her to feel what I felt. Powerless, exposed, and utterly humiliated. Step one was collecting proof. It wasn't enough that I had seen them together. I needed something undeniable, something even Melissa couldn't talk her way out of. So I installed a small GPS tracker in her car and set up a few discrete cameras in the house. If she was using any part of our home to coordinate her affair, I'd know soon enough. Step 2 was more personal. I took her favorite pair of red heels, the ones Oliver had specifically mentioned, and made a subtle change. I wasn't going to destroy them, not yet. Instead, I etched a tiny scratch into the sole, just enough to leave a distinctive mark wherever she walked. A breadcrumb trail, if you will. That evening, she told me she was meeting a friend for drinks. I smiled, pretending to believe her, and wished her a good time. As soon as she left, I opened the GPS app on my phone. The little dot representing her car moved steadily across town, finally stopping at the same boutique hotel. I arrived 15 minutes later, parking down the street and keeping a low profile. This time, I wasn't sitting idly by. I had my camera ready, snapping photos as she greeted Oliver with another kiss and walked inside. My chest burned with anger, but I kept my composure. This wasn't the moment for revenge, not yet. When she got home later that night, I was sitting on the couch, casually flipping through TV channels. She walked in, all smiles, and asked, "How was your evening?" I forced a smile and replied, "Uneventful. Yours?" "Oh, just catching up with Stephanie," she said, effortlessly lying. "Stephanie's going through a lot right now." Stephanie, I thought bitterly. The same Stephanie who moved to another state last year. Melissa didn't even bother to make her lies consistent. I nodded, pretending to believe her, and watched as she disappeared into the bedroom. Step 3 of my plan required patience. Over the next few days, I kept tracking her movements and gathering evidence. Each time she met Oliver, I documented everything: photos, videos, even audio recordings from a small device I managed to slip into her car. It was a lot of work, but every time I felt like giving up, I reminded myself of one thing. She didn't care about the damage she was doing to me. She didn't care about the vows we made or the life we built together. And if she didn't care, then I wouldn't either. But the real turning point came one afternoon when Melissa left her laptop open while she showered. Normally, she was careful with her devices, but I guess she didn't think I'd be suspicious. I hesitated for a moment, then clicked on her email. What I found made my blood boil. There were dozens of messages between her and Oliver, dating back months. They joked about me, called me clueless and pathetic, and talked about all the ways they'd sneaked around behind my back. One message in particular stood out. "I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. He's too dumb to figure it out anyway." That was the moment I decided their little fantasy world was about to come crashing down. Later that evening, Melissa asked if we could host a small dinner party. "Just a few friends," she said, flashing that perfect smile. I agreed without hesitation. This was exactly the opportunity one needed. As she busied herself with preparations, I made my own plans. I invited a few additional guests to the party, ones she didn't know about. By the time the night arrived, I was ready for the grand reveal. The house was bustling with laughter and conversation as our friends mingled. Melissa, ever the perfect hostess, floated around the room with a drink in hand, acting as if she didn't have a care in the world. Oliver was there too, of course, blending in effortlessly. They thought they were untouchable. They had no idea what was coming. When the time was right, I tapped my glass to get everyone's attention. "Can I have a moment?" I began, my voice calm but firm. The room quieted, and all eyes turned to me. Melissa smiled, clearly expecting some kind of toast or heartfelt speech. Instead, I held up one of the photos I had taken. Melissa and Oliver, arm in arm, walking into the hotel. Her smile faltered, her face going pale as whispers spread through the room. "I thought tonight would be a good time to share something important," I said, my gaze fixed on her. "Since we're all friends here, it seems only fair that everyone knows the truth." For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Melissa stood frozen, her drink trembling in her hand. Oliver shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his cocky grin disappearing as he realized what was unfolding. The whispers around the room grew louder, blending into a symphony of shock and disbelief. "What is this?" Melissa finally stammered, her voice a mixture of panic and outrage. "Evan, what are you doing?" I took a step closer, holding up another photo. This one of her kissing Oliver in the parking lot of the boutique hotel. "This," I said, my voice calm but sharp, "is what you've been doing while pretending to be a devoted wife." Gasps rippled through the room, and one of her friends, Sarah, actually dropped her wine glass, the sound of shattering glass punctuating the moment. Melissa's face turned bright red, but she quickly tried to regain her composure. "This is insane," she blurted, her tone now laced with anger. "You're making a fool of yourself, Evan. These are just doctored photos or something. You're jealous and paranoid." I chuckled darkly, shaking my head. "Doctored, really? Then I suppose you'd have no problem explaining this." I reached for my phone, playing an audio recording from her car. Melissa's voice echoed through the room. "I love how stupid he is. He never even questions me anymore. And those heels, Oliver? They're for you. He doesn't even notice when I wear them out." The room erupted. People were whispering and pointing, their gazes darting between Melissa and Oliver. Some were glaring at Oliver with open disgust, while others looked at me with pity. Melissa's mask of confidence crumbled completely. "You had no right to record me," she screamed, her voice cracking. "This is a violation of my privacy." "Privacy?" I shot back, my voice rising for the first time. You're lecturing me about privacy while sneaking around with my so-called friend? Don't talk to me about rights, Melissa. You forfeited that the moment you decided our marriage wasn't worth your loyalty. Oliver, who had been silent up until now, finally stood up, trying to salvage the situation. Evan, man, let's not blow this out of proportion, he said, holding his hands up like a peacekeeper. This doesn't have to get ugly. I stared at him, my anger boiling over. Out of proportion? You've been sleeping with my wife behind my back for months, laughing at me, and you have the nerve to act like the victim? I stepped closer, my voice dropping to a dangerous calm. You should leave now. Oliver hesitated, glancing at Melissa, who looked like she wanted to crawl under a rock. Finally, he grabbed his coat and stormed out, muttering something under his breath. Melissa stood there, tears streaming down her face, her composure completely shattered. Evan, please, she begged, her voice barely above a whisper. We can talk about this. You don't have to ruin everything. Ruin everything? I repeated, incredulous. Melissa, you ruined everything. You threw away 10 years of marriage, 10 years of trust. For what? A fling with Oliver? And you expect me to just sit here and pretend everything's fine? I turned to the room, addressing everyone. I'm sorry you all had to see this, but I'm done covering for her. I've been the fool for too long, and I won't do it anymore. The party quickly dissolved after that. Guests awkwardly filed out, some offering me sympathetic pats on the shoulder, while others shot Melissa cold, judgmental glares. By the time the house was empty, it was just the two of us, standing in the wreckage of our marriage. Melissa tried to approach me, her voice trembling. Evan, please, we can work this out. I made a mistake, but it doesn't have to end like this. I shook my head, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. No, Melissa, it's already over. You just don't realize it yet. The house was eerily quiet after everyone left. Melissa stood by the kitchen counter, her arms crossed, her face a mix of anger, regret, and desperation. I stayed on the couch, staring at the remnants of the party, half-empty wine glasses, crumpled napkins, and the broken pieces of our marriage scattered in every corner of the room. I can't believe you humiliated me like that, Melissa hissed, breaking the silence. Her voice was sharp, but I could hear the trembling beneath it. I laughed bitterly, finally looking at her. Humiliated you? You think this is about your embarrassment, Melissa? You destroyed our marriage. You made me the laughingstock of everyone you and Oliver have been mocking behind my back. She flinched at his name. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said, her voice softening. It just got out of control. I stood up, the anger boiling just beneath my skin. Out of control? That's what you call meeting him at hotels, sneaking around, and telling him I'm too stupid to figure it out? Don't insult me by pretending this was some harmless mistake. Her tears started falling again, but I wasn't moved. For years, I'd been the one to comfort her, to pick her up when she was down, to fight for us when things got tough. But now I couldn't even look at her without feeling disgusted. I want you out of this house, I said, my voice cold and steady. Pack your things and leave. Go stay with your mistake. See how much he values you now that everything's out in the open. Melissa's jaw dropped, and for a moment I thought she might argue. But then she straightened her back, her expression hardening. You think you can just throw me out? This is my house too, Evan. I have just as much right to be here as you do. I nodded slowly, my anger simmering into something more dangerous, determination. You're right, I said. Legally you do. But I'll make it clear. You staying here will make both our lives miserable. You've already burned every bridge between us, Melissa. I'm giving you the chance to leave with some dignity. She hesitated, the weight of my words sinking in. Finally, she turned and stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. I let out a long breath, my hands shaking from the adrenaline. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of drawers opening and closing. Melissa was packing. I stayed out of her way, watching from a distance as she threw her clothes into a suitcase. She didn't say a word to me, and I didn't offer any. When she finally finished, she grabbed her suitcase and paused at the door. You're going to regret this, Evan, she said, her voice cold. You think you've won, but you haven't. You'll see. I didn't respond, just stared at her until she walked out. The moment the door closed, I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in months, the house felt lighter, like the air wasn't suffocating me anymore. But Melissa's departure was only the beginning. 2 days later, I got a call from a mutual friend. Evan, she said hesitantly. I don't know if I should be telling you this, but Melissa has been saying some interesting things about you. I sighed, already dreading what was coming. Let me guess, I'm the villain? More than that, she said. She's telling people you're abusive, that you've been controlling her for years, and that's why she turned to Oliver. I clenched my jaw, the fury bubbling back up. Of course she is, I muttered. She can't take responsibility for anything, so she's painting herself as the victim. I thought you should know, she said. A lot of people don't believe her, but some do. I thanked her and hung up, my mind racing. Melissa wasn't just content with breaking my heart. She was trying to destroy my reputation. And if she thought I'd just sit back and let her, she had another thing coming. I dug out the evidence I'd gathered, the photos, the recordings, the messages on her laptop. I wasn't planning to use them initially. I just wanted to confront her with the truth. But now I realized I needed to protect myself. That evening, I called Melissa. She answered on the third ring, her voice dripping with smugness. What do you want, Evan? I know what you've been saying about me, I said, keeping my tone calm. And I want you to stop. If you don't, I'll have no choice but to share the proof I have. And trust me, Melissa, it'll ruin you. She laughed bitterly. You think you can scare me? Go ahead, Evan, show your little evidence. No one will care. I'll just tell them you're obsessed and can't let go. I tightened my grip on the phone, her words igniting a fire in me. We'll see about that, I said before hanging up. The next day, I made my move. I didn't post anything online, didn't go public with the evidence. Instead, I sent it to a select few people, close friends, family, and mutual acquaintances who had heard Melissa's lies. Along with the proof, I wrote a simple message. I don't want to drag this out or make it messy, but I won't stand by while my character is attacked. Here's the truth. Do with it what you will. The response was immediate. My phone blew up with messages of support, and more than one person reached out to tell me they confronted Melissa. She wasn't expecting that. By the end of the day, I got a text from her. You've made your point. I hope you're happy. I stared at the message, feeling no satisfaction, only exhaustion. This wasn't about winning. It was about survival. And though the battle wasn't over, I knew one thing for sure. Melissa would think twice before coming after me again. For the first time in weeks, I thought the storm had passed. Melissa had backed off after my message, and the chaos of our shattered marriage seemed to settle into a dull, uneasy calm. But I should have known better. Melissa wasn't the kind of person to let things go quietly. It started with small things. I noticed strange charges on our shared bank account. Hotel stays, expensive dinners, even purchases at high-end boutiques. At first, I thought they might be mistakes, but then it hit me. Melissa was still using the joint account. While I was busy picking up the pieces of my life, she was treating herself to luxuries on my dime. I called the bank immediately, demanding to know how she still had access. Turns out, I had forgotten to revoke her card. A simple oversight on my part, but it gave her just enough room to bleed me dry. That night I called her. She answered, her voice dripping with feigned sweetness. Evan, what a surprise. Did you miss me already? Cut the crap, Melissa, I snapped. I know what you're doing. The charge is on the account. Stop now, or I'll freeze it entirely. She laughed, a cold, sharp sound that sent a chill down my spine. Oh, Evan, don't act like you're the victim here. After everything you've put me through, don't I deserve a little compensation? Compensation? I nearly shouted. You cheated on me. You lied to me, and now you think you're entitled to my money? I think I'm entitled to what's fair, she replied coolly. And if you try to cut me off, I'll make sure everyone knows just how fair you've been during this divorce. I hung up, my hands trembling with anger. It was clear Melissa wasn't just trying to hurt me emotionally. She wanted to destroy me financially too. The next morning, I went to my lawyer. I want her cut off completely, I said, slamming the bank statements onto his desk. No more access to my money. No more using me as her personal ATM. My lawyer, a no-nonsense man named Frank, nodded thoughtfully. We can freeze the joint account immediately, he said. But I'll warn you, Evan, this might provoke her. If she's already being difficult, cutting off her financial lifeline could make things messy. Let it get messy, I said through gritted teeth. I'm done playing nice. By the end of the day, Melissa's card was deactivated, and the account was locked. I felt a small surge of victory, but it didn't last long. That evening, she called me again, her voice full of venom. You really think you can win, don't you? She hissed. Freezing the account doesn't change anything, Evan. I'll get what's mine one way or another. Good luck with that, I replied, hanging up before she could say more. But her words stayed with me, a nagging reminder that this wasn't over. The real blow came 2 days later when I received a letter from her lawyer. Melissa was suing me for spousal support, claiming I had financially and emotionally abandoned her. She was demanding a hefty monthly payment along with half of our remaining assets. I stared at the letter, my heart sinking. This wasn't just about the money. It was about control. Melissa wanted to keep me under her thumb, even after everything she had done, and she was willing to drag me through the courts to do it. Frank wasn't surprised when I showed him the letter. This is a common tactic, he said. She knows you're angry, and she's hoping to use that against you. But don't worry, we'll fight this. How? I asked, feeling defeated. She's already telling people I'm abusive. Now she's trying to make it look like I've left her destitute. Then we'll use the evidence you've gathered, Frank said firmly. The photos, the recordings, they all paint a very different picture of her behavior. And if she wants to bring this to court, we'll make sure the truth comes out. The weeks that followed were some of the most grueling of my life. Melissa didn't just stop at the lawsuit. She started spreading even more lies about me to our mutual friends, painting herself as the victim of a cold, unfeeling husband. Some people believed her, cutting ties with me entirely. Others reached out to offer their support, but even their kindness couldn't dull the pain of betrayal. But through it all, I stayed focused on the goal, exposing Melissa for who she really was. Every time she threw another accusation my way, Frank and I countered with cold, hard facts. The evidence I had gathered became our shield, and slowly but surely, Melissa's lies began to unravel. The turning point came during a deposition. Melissa sat across from me, her lawyer at her side, her expression smug and defiant. She repeated her claims about my supposed abuse, but when Frank presented the audio recordings of her mocking me with Oliver, her confidence faltered. What do you have to say about this? Frank asked, playing one of the clips. Melissa's voice filled the room. He's too stupid to figure it out. He'll never leave me, no matter what I do. Her lawyer tried to object, but the damage was done. Melissa's carefully constructed narrative began to crumble, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. That night, as I sat alone in my quiet, empty house, I realized something important. Melissa might have taken years of my life, but she wouldn't take my future. The fight wasn't over yet, but for the first time, I felt like I was winning. The deposition marked the first crack in Melissa's armor. Watching her face crumble as her lies were exposed gave me a glimmer of hope, a sense that for once, I wasn't the one being humiliated. But if I thought she'd back down after that, I was sorely mistaken. The very next day, she retaliated. I woke up to a flood of messages from friends and acquaintances, all asking the same question: why is Melissa posting this? My stomach dropped as I opened my phone to find a social media post from her. A carefully crafted sob story about how I had emotionally abused her for years, how she had no choice but to find comfort elsewhere, and how I was now trying to ruin her life out of spite. She didn't stop there. She attached a photo of us from happier times, captioning it, "I thought he was my forever, but people change. If you've ever felt trapped in a loveless marriage, you'll understand my pain." The comments were a mix of sympathy and outrage, with strangers chiming in to tell her how brave she was for speaking out. My name wasn't mentioned explicitly, but everyone knew who she was talking about. I called Frank immediately. "She's turning this into a public circus," I said, my voice tight with frustration. "What can we do about it?" Frank sighed. "Unfortunately, not much. As long as she's not naming you directly or making outright false claims, it's hard to prove defamation. But don't worry, this kind of stunt won't hold up in court. Focus on the evidence we have." His words were logical, but they didn't do much to calm me down. Melissa wasn't just trying to win a legal battle anymore. She was trying to destroy my reputation completely. That night, I sat down with a glass of whiskey and thought about my next move. Part of me wanted to fight fire with fire, to post the recordings, the photos, and the text for the world to see. But deep down, I knew that wasn't who I was. If I stooped to her level, I'd just give her more ammunition to use against me. Instead, I decided to let the evidence speak for itself. I doubled down on preparing for court, working with Frank to ensure every piece of proof was airtight. At the same time, I reached out to mutual friends, the ones who hadn't taken sides yet. I showed them the truth, calmly and without drama. Some of them were shocked, Others were skeptical, but more than a few came back to me with apologies. Then, out of nowhere, came the biggest surprise of all. One evening, as I was reviewing documents, I got a call from an unknown number. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. "Hello," I said cautiously. There was a pause, then a woman's voice. "Hi, Evan, this is Julia." Julia, Oliver's wife. We'd met a few times at gatherings, but we weren't close. The last I'd heard, she and Oliver had split up quietly a few months ago. "I'm sorry to bother you," she continued, "but I think we need to talk. It's about Melissa and Oliver." My heart raced. "I'm listening." She let out a shaky breath. "I found out about their affair months ago. It's why I left him. But there's more to it than just the cheating. Oliver, he's been planning something with Melissa, something that could hurt you." "What do you mean?" I asked, my grip tightening on the phone. "I'm not sure of all the details," she admitted, "but I overheard them talking about draining your accounts. They said you're too distracted with the divorce to notice." My stomach churned. I'd already caught Melissa siphoning money from our joint account, but this was something else entirely. "I have proof," Julia added. "Bank statements, messages. I can send them to you." "Why are you helping me?" I asked, my voice filled with equal parts gratitude and suspicion. "Because I know what it feels like to be blindsided by someone you trust," she said quietly. "And because Oliver deserves to pay for what he's done." The next morning, Julia emailed me everything she had. It was worse than I'd imagined. Oliver and Melissa had been working together to move money out of our accounts and into a hidden fund. They'd even forged my signature on a few documents to make it look legitimate. Armed with this new evidence, I called Frank. "This changes everything," he said, his voice tinged with excitement. "With this, we can not only counter Melissa's claims, but potentially press charges for fraud." When the court date finally arrived, I felt a strange sense of calm. Melissa sat across from me, her expression smug, but I noticed the subtle flicker of nerves in her eyes. She didn't know what I had. As the proceedings began, her lawyer presented their case, a sob story about how I had controlled Melissa financially, leaving her no choice but to seek support. It was infuriating to listen to, but I stayed silent, letting Frank do his job. When it was our turn, Frank didn't hold back. He laid out the timeline of Melissa's affair, the forged documents, the secret fund she and Oliver had set up. Every piece of evidence was damning, and as he presented Julia's testimony, I watched Melissa's composure crumble. By the end of the day, it was clear to everyone in the room who the real villain was. Melissa's lawyer looked defeated, and Melissa herself was pale, her confident facade completely shattered. That evening, as I walked out of the courthouse, I felt a weight lift up off my shoulders. The fight wasn't over yet. There were still loose ends to tie up. But for the first time in months, I felt like I was truly free. Melissa's downfall was swift after court. The evidence against her and Oliver began to ripple through our social circles. The people who had defended her now avoided her like the plague. Her web of lies unraveled faster than I could have imagined. The fraud charges against her were just the beginning. Frank worked tirelessly to ensure Melissa and Oliver faced the consequences of their actions. They both had to attend hearings, and it didn't take long for Oliver to crack under pressure. He turned on Melissa, providing even more proof of their schemes to save himself. Watching them turn on each other was almost poetic. At home, I started to feel the pieces of my life slowly falling back into place. I moved Melissa's remaining belongings into storage and changed the locks on the house. It felt symbolic, closing a chapter that had poisoned my life for too long. One day, I got a call from Julia. "They're finished," she said, her voice tinged with satisfaction. "Oliver's lost everything. Melissa won't be far behind." "Thank you, Julia," I said sincerely. "I don't know what I'd have done without your help." "You're welcome," she replied. "Just promise me one thing. Don't let them ruin you. You deserve better." Melissa tried to reach out once. She showed up at the house, tears streaming down her face, begging for forgiveness. "Evan, please," she sobbed. "I've lost everything. I need you." I looked at her, feeling nothing but pity. "Melissa, you made your choices. Now you get to live with them." She left without another word, and I knew it was the last time I'd see her. With Melissa and Oliver out of my life, I finally felt free. The courts ruled in my favor, dismissing Melissa's claims and solidifying the fraud charges against her and Oliver. While they dealt with their legal battles, I focused on rebuilding what they had tried to destroy. The first thing I did was sell the house. It had too many memories, too many ghosts of a life I no longer wanted. I moved to a smaller place across town where I could start fresh. Packing up her belongings and leaving them at the storage facility felt like the final nail in the coffin of our broken marriage. One evening, I got a message from Sarah, one of our mutual friends. "I just wanted to check in," she wrote. "You seem happier now. I hope you know you made the right decision." I smiled, realizing that she was right. For the first time in years, I wasn't living under the shadow of Melissa's betrayal. I wasn't a pawn in someone else's game anymore. I decided to focus on myself, something I hadn't done in years. I picked up hobbies I'd abandoned, reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in ages, and even started therapy to work through the lingering pain. It wasn't easy, but each step forward felt like a victory. One day, while sorting through old photos, I found one of Melissa and me from the early days of our relationship. I stared at it for a long time before finally tossing it into the trash. She was part of my story, but she didn't define me. The last I heard, Melissa had moved out of state, trying to escape the mess she'd made. Oliver had disappeared entirely, his reputation in ruins. They were both shadows of the people they once were, and I felt nothing for them. Not anger, not pity, just indifference. Looking back, I realized something important. Melissa's betrayal had broken me, but it hadn't destroyed me. It had forced me to see the truth about our relationship, and, more importantly, about myself. I wasn't the weak, clueless man they thought I was. I had fought back, and I had won. And now, with them behind me, I could finally start living again.